Welcome to the Dr. Detective, a PhD true crime podcast, the show where we bring you critical assessment based on experience. We are diving into episode 29 with the Carnival cruise death involving the death of the 18-year-old Anna Kepner. We're going to talk about that. This is the Dr. Detective podcast series. You can find us on YouTube. This is our website here at thedoctordetective.net. Please go to the website and subscribe, like, and share. Also, you can find us on Amazon Music for streaming, Audible, and Spotify platforms. So let's get right into the show here. Before we get started, this is actually it's not legal advice. We're talking about this for educational purposes, awareness, and to take a look at what happened in this tragic event, series of events also. So there was an investigation on the cruise ship Horizon. This was done out of the port of Miami, essentially, or when it arrived back in Miami. There was an unfortunate discovery. The body of the 18-year-old Anna Kepner was discovered in the room, one of the cabins, and actually that was discovered by the cruise ship clerks and people who take care of the rooms and oversee cleanup, making the beds, refilling, dispensaries and so forth. So Anna was actually on the ship with her family, her father, stepmom, and two siblings. And we'll talk about that shortly. So essentially, she didn't show up for breakfast the next morning, and that's when search began and she was discovered. This is Anna. She's out of Titusville, Florida, high school graduate. She was a cheerleader and actually scheduled to go to the military. I believe she'd already signed up to go away. So this was kind of like a graduate cruise for her. I guess celebration essentially on her behalf with the family, of course. And she takes a lot of selfies, and we're going to talk about what happened to Anna. Again, this is the Carnival Horizon ship. Ironically, when I heard about this, I was actually on board of the Carnival Pride, and I was like, this is very unusual. So not the same ship, but I was actually aboard a cruise ship at the time the story came out, at the time of the occurrence. So, I'm looking around at the various hallways, looking at the room configurations. Of course, there's several different types of cabins, and we'll talk about that also coming up because Anna shared the room with her 16-year-old and 14-year-old step siblings, both boys. So she's 18. She's sharing a cabin with a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and the father and stepmom had their own separate room. So I'm not sure if she was the custodial person put in charge of them, but we'll get into that also. So essentially, again, she was reported missing initially and found deceased the next morning under a bed. She was wrapped in a blanket and covered by life vests, those orange vests they have. Anytime you take a cruise, they give you the emergency preparation. You have to meet at a certain deck, and they give you the prep on how to wear the life jacket, where to come to. It's called the muster station. Muster station, MUSTER. And you go to that station to learn how to put on the life vest, strap it around you. Talks about where to come to should there be an emergency. So those vests are kept in every cabin room, and typically they're like in a closet or under the bed, typically in the closet for the most part. So very unusual circumstances to find an 18-year-old deceased wrapped in a blanket under the bed with life vests on top of her. This was obviously some attempts to conceal her from being discovered. But of course, the room people, the room clerks and staffing come in to clean up, make the beds, or remake the beds, unless you do request not for them to come in. They will just have a pass there. But obviously, this was some panic situation, and we'll get more into details about that. So she's on vacation. Anna's on vacation with her father, stepmother, and three step siblings, essentially. So I only heard of her, the 16-year-old and the 14-year-old. Of course, they didn't release the names of the other two. There were some initials mentioned, but here's a picture of the family. Essentially, of course, faces have been hidden, and for purposes of just protecting her privacy rights, right? So that's her in the picture, older picture. But yeah, she's on tour. She's on a cruise, so they're having a good time until this happened. There's a room. This is a room kind of like what um, Anna shared with her siblings. So my understanding is there was a queen size bed and two bunk beds in the same cabin room, and this looks like it's some type of balcony situation. So you have different rooms. Interior, you have ocean, or they're all called staterooms, but ocean view with just a view, no balcony, and you have a balcony access, and there's suites and several different other variations. But this is a room kind of like what Anna was sharing with her step siblings. So again, she's found under the bed wrapped in a sheet, and her body was naked also, with the life jackets on top of her for concealment. Carnival did issue a statement. Carnival Cruise Line confirmed that they're working with the Miami office of the FBI for this investigation into the death of the guests traveling aboard the Carnival Horizon. They said their focus is on supporting the family of the guests in cooperation with the FBI. Unfortunately, this 18-year-old was found deceased on board of their cruise ship. So they did put that statement out early on. Of course, upon arrival back to port of Miami, the FBI takes jurisdiction of the case and they begin the initial investigation. Of course, Carnival security and police on board, security staff, and so forth, secured that particular cabin and secured any and all potential evidence that might be needed for the FBI and or police if they have police on board. So they're working in collaboration. Typically, the questions that come to mind for me are who pretty much has jurisdiction when you're on the water. Again, there is the Federal Maritime Commission, the FMC. So if it's a U.S. ship, if you're at international waters or on the waters, typically the FBI is going to take jurisdiction of that because they want everyone to stay safe. They say stay safe at sea, essentially. So they're saying if you are a victim or witness to any kind of crime, and it is a federal crime. Again, they give you a number to report, but it is the FBI that takes jurisdiction over that. So jurisdiction on the water, the medical examiner for that particular county, Miami-Dade, for this case in particular, responded to the scene along with the FBI, and they worked in collaboration. Unfortunately, these are pictures here shot by some unknown source of them bringing the gurney out with Anna's body on it. So tragic and very sad for what took place, but they're getting to the bottom of it. So again, it's an investigation. It's ongoing. Typically, during the unaliving investigation, Carnival Cruise are going to send their staff initially to determine what they have and secure the scene. Right, so they're going to close down that room, shut that room down, and prevent anyone from going in until the FBI arrives or they get back to port. I do know that most ships do have a hospital on board, and they also have a morgue in the lower levels. I've not visited those locations, but Carnival does offer like a behind the scenes kind of tour with the captain, and you can look at the crew and see kind of what they do. I'm sure with this situation, police, staffing, and FBI were taking a look at every detail they could, right? Of course, surveillance and the room keys. So we're going to talk about what evidence existed, what evidence I'm sure that they are looking at, they have looked at, and they will look at on several occasions, over and over again on a repeat basis, or with different investigators, different sets of eyes, and just to see if maybe there's something they could have missed or something in addition to this case. So of course, we always talk about the evidence, and that falls under a specific timeline because we're trying to pretty much determine what took place, right? Trying to determine the timeline of events and develop a timeline if that can be done. So the forensic data that's going to exist, you're talking about camera surveillance, you're talking about the key lock for the actual room. So essentially, you have a key card that you're issued. Every passengers issued a key card. And what's going to happen with that key card? You're going to have your method of payments and or credit attached to that card. It's going to give you access for your room. It's going to give you access for um, any beverages, dinner, activities, purchases, and so forth. Excuse me. So, with that in mind, cell phones, right? I'm sure they confiscated cell phones, and a cell phone in particular, sibling cell phones, parents, anyone that she was in contact with. So they're not just looking at the actual devices, they're looking at the call logs. They're looking at the history of what took place, the history of the communications between all parties, right? So they're looking at the social media profiles of everyone, siblings and Anna included, family and friends, anything that could have happened leading up to this. So they're going to look at witness statements. They're going to take statements from various witnesses. That means family, friends, other passengers, siblings, crew members, and so forth. You know, the person that discovered her that morning, specifically, like who found her, who was with you, you know, what is your title, what is your name, contact information, and so forth. So I'm sure they've gotten statements from all those parties involved, but specifically families, friends, and other passengers potentially who may have come in contact or may have been in company of the family or accompanying them on the cruise. So everything is in play, of course. Um, some of the doors, and talking about the key locks and the door, how it's configured. So, you know, I discovered this while I was on cruise, a different ship, of course, but I took the liberty to take pictures of the door, you know, how it's configured, the close-up shot of the key lock itself. And this is from this is the inside, the left picture here, inside, being inside our cabin, our balcony stateroom. Just looking at the door configuration, the lock configuration, and there's like a turn handle there. It can be double locked if you're inside, so that prevents anyone from accessing the room from the outside if it's double locked, if someone else is in there. I know because I got locked out in my room once. So it happens, right? But on the right side, this picture here is the outside of the door. So when you approach your room, you insert your card, and the light should turn green for access. If you can't access the room, it's going to be red, or if it's just not opening, could be double locked, or your card's not working or hasn't been activated yet. But for the most part, these are how the doors are configured, and everyone's identified that comes in or out of that room. So we're talking about the key lock data, the key card and key lock data, essentially forensic data, of course, because it's digital. The room numbers on the card, essentially, is kind of, this is an example of what the card looks like. Not my card. I haven't reached platinum yet, but I'm working on that. But the key lock data, so the room number or some encryption reference to it, it's going to have your check-in, check-out time. The color of the card shows what level you are in terms of your membership, the amount of cruises you've taken, and so forth. Again, this is guest access for all access locations, all payments that you're going to make, unless it's cash. But typically, they use the card because it's a audit trail to identify everyone that's on the ship, that's getting on, getting off the ship. Even if you visit different countries, different places, you take excursions, you're going to have your ID and or passport and that card to get back on the ship and to get off of the ship, because they scan it both ways. There's facial recognition that's also in play. So I'm sure they're going to examine that. Also the FBI. So every element of digital data and forensic data is going to be considered and vetted for this reason. Now, a couple things about the key card, and we'll talk about some concerns. So again, there's a unique code linked to the hotel security system. As you can see with that card, again, it gives a folio number, which is pretty much kind of your identification number, as it's called, for your cabin and room number. They don't put the room number in the cards anymore because they used to do that. They found some people were being targeted for trafficking or being accosted, theft, and so forth. So they finally stopped putting the folio number on the card. Some cards do have it on there, but this is probably been redacted for purposes of discussion. So they may have used someone's actual card, but also as your restaurant you're dining at. So again, a lot of information that maybe needs to be considered or changed. Some considerations I want to talk about with the key cards, because essentially upon boarding, you're using your passport, your ID, your passport is scanned, so your passport information comes up on the key card also. But the key cards are essentially left in the mailbox outside of your cabin door or your cruise stateroom door. Everyone has a mailbox essentially outside their room. So upon us boarding, or what they called embarkation, we arrive on the ship. We're getting checked in. Our luggage is being brought on board. We're being vetted. We're being identified. Facial recognition is established. And this is all collectively organized to be identified and applied to this room key or your card now. Some concerns that I want to discuss are, access to the rooms. It accesses your, as I mentioned, your finances, your room, your valuables. If it's cash, you can have a cash account attached to that card, or credit cards, or debit cards, right? So, and upon boarding the ship, embarking, your cards are left in a mailbox. So essentially, they tell you your rooms will be ready by what, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30 or so, if you board the ship roughly that morning. And you just kind of walk into your room and your card's there in an envelope, but everyone's card's there in an envelope. So again, they have protocols and other ways to verify you are who you are, and PIN numbers associated with the card also. So that's the method of protection. But just a little bit of concern or things to consider when you cruise, and or maybe Carnival should consider making some additional changes. This may or may not factor into this scenario, but it's still good to have a base of knowledge of how it works. So anyone on board can access that card upon embarking, or go to different um, floors of the ship and so forth. So something to consider. This investigation into Anna Kepner's unaliving is going to take place in two parts. And I say two parts because the body of Anna is going to be handled by the medical examiner's office. The actual scene, which is the room at this point in time, and the ship essentially, is handled by the FBI. So all forensic elements were secured, handed over to the FBI. The room um, access and control was handed over to the FBI by Carnival. And essentially, that is two parts of the investigation. So FBI is combing through the forensic data, the cell phones, the social media, everything else, and the medical examiner takes the body into their custody jurisdiction, and they perform their autopsy and toxicology and so forth. And we'll talk about the cause that they've more recently stated. So, but this is two parts. So Carnival did assist in securing the room and contacting the authorities, FBI specifically, and they provide support for them, or provided support, and are continuing to do so if necessary. Again, so now they're saying that a person of interest is Anna's step brother as a person of interest. We're not going to say suspect. They may have said suspect more recently, but we're going to say person of interest right now. Again, something happened. Unfortunately, a lot of things happened. A lot of things went wrong. So there's a picture here that was recovered from various outlets and media sources. Looks like there's some kind of struggle that may have taken place. Um, that remains to be seen. That'll be announced later during the investigation after things are released. But this is they call this the cheerleader murder mystery, unaliving mystery, right? So stepbrother was questioned. I believe he's now in some kind of mental health facility, psychiatric care, under psychiatric care, and he says he doesn't remember what happened. So again, going back to the interviews, some family and friends, the ex-boyfriend of Anna mentioned there was some kind of video or live stream where they saw the brother, um, close to Anna or on top of her, or essentially also had a knife in his hand. So I'm not sure what that's about. But again, that's just part of the protocol and process for interviewing, gathering the history of what could have taken place or what's taken place again along the way. So the Emmy has reported more recently the cause of death, and what they're surmising. There's still the final report that has to be completed, of course. But at this point in time, they're saying the cause and manner of death was by asphyxiation. So again, I'm going to enlarge the screen here. Asphyxiation, they're saying Anna Kepner was found aboard Carnival Horizon this month, and she was unalived or died by asphyxiation resulting from a bar hold across, like an arm across the neck, for example. This is from a source that told ABC News. So investigators also found 2 bruises on the side of her neck. The source said FBI has declined to make a statement, and the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office has declined to make a statement. That was as of last Friday, and so forth, citing the investigation's ongoing. So again, as I always say, protect the integrity of the case. We have to do that in context with what's going on. We have to maintain a certain level of credibility, and we have to make sure the evidence that comes in can be, first of all, controlled and protected, and also delivered in court. Because if it gets altered or too far, things get too far out of control, then it's hard to have that admissible in court if it's already shared. So you want the evidence to be credible. That applies to not just this case, but every case. One example, an outlet was able to get a copy of the ME certificate of death, essentially. On that certificate, there's no manner or cause of death listed yet, but according to that source, the preliminary information indicates there were no signs of sexual assault. Also, there did not appear to be any kind of drugs or substances such as alcohol in her system. The autopsy and toxicology reports have not been finalized, so the ME has not made a final statement of reporting. But these are some of the details that are coming forward, and we'll see what the final report says, because that is where the investigators, such as the FBI, that's where their eyes and their purview at this time. Again, just sending prayers out to the family, and Anna's mom has actually made a statement. She remembers her daughter being happy and says that she's holding up as best she can. Mom saying she's trying not to fall apart. She was just a great child, always happy. Anna would always try to make everyone smile. She was just always happy. So that's Heather Kepner made a statement last week. And so there's also some unrelated custody issue going on with the family. So the timing of this is also terrible. A lot to consider, a lot to grieve over, and the tragic loss of life of a young lady, which should never happen, especially on vacation. At any time, it should never happen. But this is even more tragic with the publicity of what took place, and for Carnival Cruise as well. So we want to send prayers out to Anna Kepner and her family, and again, just keep them in your thoughts. And whatever the outcome is for the case, they're in the proper authorities' hands with the FBI, so they will make a final statement, and or if charges are signed, they will announce that or let that be known to the public as well. So again, we want to send prayers out for Anna and the family, because everyone's grieving. This is the Dr. Detective, a PhD true crime podcast. Please go to our website at www.thedoctordetective.net, or just thedoctordetective.net. I believe it defaults now. You can go to the website. You can see various background information. You can see go to the podcast link, and you can click on any one of those pictures. It'll take you right to the website. Subscribe, like, and share. Again, it's all about sharing. So we do a variety of stories, talk about awareness and so forth. But at this time, we are keeping Anna Kepner in our thoughts, right? So again, as always, spread love, show compassion, and thanks for tuning in. As always, another show coming up, we're going to talk about the Ecotech Genius, episode 30. Thank you.